Hey, what's up, everybody? Today I have an interesting video for you that comes from the Joe Budden Podcast. If you're unfamiliar, this is a hip-hop podcast where they usually discuss news and goings-on in the hip-hop world. Unfortunately, they decided to step out of that lane and discuss topics related to Flat Earth, so here we are. Now, the reason I'm even touching this is because of the influence these people have. This is the biggest podcast in the hip-hop community, and therefore it has a giant reach amongst my people. And while they may have been casually discussing this topic, the people watching were not, as can be seen from the comment section. So let's debunk the Joe Budden Podcast.
I think time itself is fake. So the international date line that they have there, if you cross over this part, because of the hour differences, they just add the day now.
Yeah,
that's why
it's the same
time.
time.
Time technically kind of starts by New Zealand.
Right off the bat, Ice, this guy here, starts by claiming time is fake. He's right and wrong at the same time. Time is a construct made by men meant to make sense of the day, night, and seasonal cycles. This is true, but day and night and the seasons are objective periods that the Earth goes through. Those of you who live in the Midwest completely understand the difference between January and August, I am sure. The unit of measurement we colloquially refer to as time simply documents the physical location of the Earth in its orbit around the Sun and its own rotation. So if we tie all this into the international date line, it's simply an arbitrary line meant to make sense of the fact that at any given time, half the Earth is in day and the other half is in shadow, better known as night. The line itself is arbitrary. It could be anywhere we want it to be. It just so happened to be there. The issue is the Earth is massive, and since every 15 degrees on the globe, the position of the Sun will be different for any given area's inhabitants, we created time zones, or areas that represent a specific period of time in the 24-hour period. There's a reason there are 24 time zones, and that's specifically because the Earth is a sphere. As I explained in my last video, the Sun apparently moves in the sky about 15 degrees per hour. I say apparently because it's actually the Earth rotating, but from our perspective, it appears the Sun is moving. Now, this is pure math. If there is 15 degrees of apparent movement by the Sun every hour, this means it would take 24 hours for it to return to whatever position it is currently in if the Earth were round, hence the 24-hour day. In other words, what is 15 degrees multiplied by 24 hours? For all you math wizards, you got 360, and that is how we know the Earth is round.
Would you trust the pilot?
Yeah.
So a pilot says that if the world is round, then when you're flying, you would be flying at a pitch because the world is round. They don't fly at a pitch, they fly straight.
Huh? Uh-oh. Get these niggas ish.
If it's a circle, it's a globe.
I understand that.
If I'm flying from north to south, I would be flying at an angle, at a pitch.
So Ish, this guy right here, claims that pilots state planes should dip their noses if the Earth were a sphere, and that because they fly straight, this demonstrates the Earth is flat. First of all, you will never find a commercial airline pilot claiming this. In fact, all of their instrumentation in the cockpit assumes a spherical Earth. Literally, if the Earth were flat, they couldn't fly current planes because all of their equipment is for a spherical Earth. But I digress. Ish's claim that planes have to dip their noses is a popular claim by flat earthers. This is due to a fundamental misunderstanding of how big Earth is and how planes fly. What they think flight looks like is this, but what it actually looks like is this. You see, we are incredibly tiny in comparison to the Earth, and even the biggest jets are just tiny specks compared to the planet. In addition, planes are able to fly specifically because air exists. Air, like other fluids, is physical matter. The same way fish swim through water is similar to how things move through air. Without air, you cannot generate lift, and without lift, a plane would stall and fall right out of the sky. Air is held to the Earth by gravity. Since air, or the atmosphere, follows the shape of the Earth, planes don't have to dip their noses to remain attached to the Earth. All they have to do is fly through the air, and gravity will keep them in a level flight.
Big, you think the airplane isn't relative to the
Thank you,
globe?
Right.
The airplane is like an ant on the ball.
It's not even an ant. It's not even a speck of sand.
Parks, The disembodied voice you just heard asks Ish a great question, and something that I just explained. The massive size of the planet is what makes it appear as if you're flying straight. Think of a bacterium on a basketball. From their perspective, the ball is flat because of how small they are relative to the ball. But given that we are much larger than a basketball, we can clearly see that it is a sphere no matter what the flat basketball or bacteria thinks. This concept completely stuns Ish, and you can just see the gears turning in his head trying to come up with an explanation. Let's hear it.
Flying over a course of 17 hours, at some point in time, the plane is going to have to dip. Nigga, if you fly straight, you're going to just keep going if the earth is round.
Wrong, Ish. As Parks just explained to him, we are tiny in comparison to the Earth. Think of an ant crawling over a beach ball. No matter how long it walks, it will be walking straight from its perspective because it is small. It will have never noticed it crawled over the curve of the ball. As I already explained, air is particulate matter, meaning it is not nothing, it is something. You feel that something whenever the wind is blowing. Planes cannot fly without air. This means, like fish swimming in water, planes swim through the air and are supported by that air. Since air is a fluid, it makes sense to visualize it like this. If you were in a swimming pool, why can't you swim out of the pool into the sky? The answer is the water is no longer supporting you. So planes cannot simply fly straight off the planet because in order to generate lift, planes have to swim through air. And anyone with a rudimentary understanding of the atmosphere understands that it gets thinner the higher up you go. This is why commercial airliners fly at around 30 to 40,000 feet, because the higher you go, the less air there is, making flight far more difficult or even outright impossible. What Ish is describing is a rocket, which flies straight up and out of the atmosphere and requires some of the most powerful fuel known to man to do so, rocket fuel. Commercial airliners literally cannot do this and rely on aerodynamics in order to maintain flight. This is why anytime you see a plane flying straight up, they stall. They simply do not have the propellant to maintain this angle of attack. Only fighter jets can do this, and even then, they can't do it for too long.
Talk to him.
Visual representation.
Talk to him, Freeze.
Okay. Let me see where he's going with this.
If I'm flying from here to here, right? Yeah. If the earth was round, wouldn't it kind of make more sense to just do that?
I honestly thought he was going somewhere with that. Not only does Ice not understand the concept of time, it appears spheres also elude his understanding. Anyway, let's get to some of the comments under the clip and address them as well, as a few people decided to chime in and give their 2 pesos. So this person comes at the topic from the angle of distrusting science and the government. Now, there is an elephant in the room, so we might as well address it. Most people that watch this podcast are black. Black people have a long history of distrusting science, and generally for good reason. Science was weaponized against non-white people throughout history, and experiments were conducted on humans in the past, one of the most famous examples being the Tuskegee syphilis study. Most black people are under the assumption that black men were purposefully infected with syphilis during that study, but what actually happened was those people already had syphilis and were simply left untreated. In other words, the study was about what would happen if they never received treatment. Of course, this study, although misunderstood, was still unethical as it led to preventable deaths of over 100 people. This study alone is responsible for a large fracture of trust amongst black Americans towards science and medicine in general. So I said all that to say this is probably where this person is coming from, and it's something I myself deal with when talking to members of my community, as they tend to be religious and have a general distrust of science. The good news is that the shape of the earth does not require trusting the government's words or those scary, evil scientists. Anyone can determine the shape of the earth with a few simple observations. You can go to a beach and watch boats sail off into the horizon. These boats disappear from bottom up, which means the bottom of the boat is being hidden behind the curve of the earth. If the earth were flat, you would be able to see the entirety of the boat no matter how far away it gets, but that is not what we see in reality. Another simple observation is traveling to the southern hemisphere. Most humans live in the northern hemisphere, but if you've ever traveled to Brazil or Australia, you'd notice they celebrate Christmas in summer. This is because the Earth is tilted on its axis, which means the seasons are opposite in the southern hemisphere. As of the writing of this video, it's May 14th, 2024. This means for me here in Los Angeles, it's spring heading into summer, but for Sydney, Australia, it's fall heading into winter. This could only ever be possible on a ball. That's not the only quirk. In the southern hemisphere, they also see entirely different stars in the sky than we do here in the north. This is because they are on a different side of a sphere, and as such, their sky is mostly hidden from us here in the north, and vice versa. The moon they see is upside down for us here in the north, and this is again only possible on a ball. See how simple observation proves the shape of the earth and you don't need to trust any governments? Now, this person is one that annoys me because this is the kind of person that sees evidence and then outright rejects it. There is no way they've gone their entire lives without seeing images of the earth, so what they're saying is what a lot of actual flirts say. These images of earth are fake. This is the blue marble, an image of the Earth taken by Apollo 17 astronauts in 1972. The date of this image is extremely important because that was a time period before CGI was advanced enough to produce images of the Earth, and Photoshop wouldn't be invented for another decade. And as we all know, flirts love Photoshop and CGI. The 1958 film Vertigo was the very first to use CGI. This is how advanced it was. Yeah, about as sophisticated as a pencil drawing and nowhere near as detailed as actual film. And speaking of film, this image is literally on film, complete with its original Kodak paper, watermark, and serial number, proving that it is, in fact, a real image taken with a real camera. So, gratefully trolled, they have already given us real photos of space. You simply reject them because you're not smart enough to know how to prove something is real. And finally, this guy is one of those flirts that actively pisses me off. Not only are they stupid, they have to lie and spread misinformation, and this is precisely why I do what I do on my channel. But let's address these 3 tweets. Number 1, most pilots do not believe the Earth is flat. As I said earlier, their instruments assume the Earth is a sphere, meaning they fly with that assumption. I'd actually argue it's near impossible to find a pilot that actually does believe this nonsense, but I won't discount the odd amateur pilot that owns a small plane with this belief. You would have to produce a commercial pilot saying this for me to take this claim seriously. Further, we can fly over Antarctica. We generally don't because it's an enormous wasteland that doesn't have runways for safe landings in case a plane encounters an emergency. It's made worse that due to the Earth's tilt, half of the year it is in 24-hour night, meaning not only do you not have a runway, you can't even see where you'd be landing in an emergency, which makes it even more dangerous. And even if you could make an emergency landing, who the fuck is coming to rescue you? It's a desolate wasteland with no humans. And given that fact, you have to account for the fact that no human civilizations exist there, so it's not commercially feasible to fly over the landmass. So you see, there are many reasons we don't, and 0 of those reasons are because there is a giant ice wall that the government don't want yous to know. Which brings me to your second tweet. There are no ice walls hiding land. Seriously, take this claim on its face. How are you claiming there is land beyond a hypothetical ice wall if they won't let anyone beyond it to see? Isn't that a claim without evidence? Because if you had evidence, it would mean they let someone beyond that wall and that someone made it out alive to tell the tale, which means they do let people beyond the wall to see. So go to Antarctica and see for yourself and produce images of this hypothetical land. They even book civilian trips to Antarctica, so you have no excuse. And finally, we end on a lie. Judah Kid 6, you have never seen videos of people trying to fly over Antarctica and being intercepted by the military. I mean, first of all, which military? Antarctica is international waters, and there is literally a treaty that states there are to be no military installations on Antarctica. So, in order for your claim to be true, you would have videographic evidence of a country breaking this treaty, which would cause an international incident. So, what were you lying? That people can't fly over Antarctica without being shot down? Well then, what the hell is this? This has been your friendly neighborhood Birdman, and I'll see you in the next one.